Good afternoon, folks. This is our final podcast on the Bleacher Report's Top 100. My name's Eric, and I'm with my buddy Zach. Say hi, Zach.
What's up, everyone?
This one we've been waiting for. We've been so excited to get to this. We wanted to do the top 11, not the top 10 like most people do, because I even think 11 to 10 is going to be controversial. So, kick back, grab a drink, enjoy, and if you like, please subscribe and interact with us on social media or an email too. We'd love to hear your list. We'd love to hear what you think we got wrong or what we got right. Interaction is so important when it comes to these lists. So I'm going to kick this sucker off. We're going to go number 11, Kobe Bryant, the Black Mamba. I can see Laker fans losing their minds over Kobe at 11 because most of your Laker fans probably think he's 1 through 3. But if you look at the top 10 that we're going to go through here in a second, you're going to start to see that it's pretty hard to put him anywhere than where he is, I think, personally. I remember watching Kobe from the beginning and watching him slowly turn into Jordan Jr., even with the attitude. I was never a fan of his, to be honest with you. I thought he was too much of a ball hog. At times, he was an excellent defender. I mean, great defender. Really perfected that turnaround fadeaway that Jordan, kind of brought into the league in a sense. At times, he was the best player in the league. I can completely agree with that. Awful three-point percentage is really the only other knock I have on him. But he's got hardware. He's got amazing numbers. If we look at his ultimate season, I'm not even going to look at his career numbers. His ultimate season is what I want to talk about. 35.4 points per game, 6.9, let's call it 7 rebounds per game, 6 assists, 2.2 steals, and a block. Those numbers are insanity. I mean, that's your ultimate season. That's an amazing season for a point guard / shooting guard. I mean, you could say he was either on that team because he brought up the ball a lot for sure. But he's absolutely 11, yes. 3, 2, 1, no. I mean, you hear his name brought up all the time when it comes to, is he better than Jordan? And it's like, just stop. He's not better than Jordan. And I think at 11, he's actually perfectly slotted, which I know I'm going to get a ton of mail about saying that you don't know what you're talking about. What do you think, Zach?
Laker fans love Kobe, and for the right reasons. He's the closest thing to Jordan that we've seen as far as the way they play and their mentality. But 11's a good spot for him. It really is. And I think that just because he is kind of like the closest thing that we've seen to Jordan, a lot of people want to put them right next to each other. But when you really think about it and you actually watch the Birds, the Magics, and all these guys ahead, you can't possibly put him ahead of those guys.
Nope.
But he is the closest thing to it, so I do understand why people love him so much, because that guy was a fierce competitor, and I have nothing but respect for him. I'm with you. I was never a big fan of his, mainly because I'm a Celtic fan. And I also like to see a lot of ball movement, and I'm with you. I think on some of those teams he was a little bit of a ball hog. And look, the only knock that I have on Kobe really is Pat Riley talks a lot about the disease of need after you win. And it seemed once he got those first couple of titles with Shaq that he had more of a need to be the guy rather than a need to win more. And that's what really upset me with that. And a lot of Kobe fans might not agree with this, but I just feel like if your priority is to get the big man out of LA when he's really the one that, got you those rings, because he's the finals MVP and all those titles, then your personal goals and your personal achievements mean a little bit more to you than winning. And he did win after, Shaq left or whatever, and I respect that. But that just soured me, how that whole thing happened. I know it's a two-way street. Shaq didn't do everything right, but they should have both figured it out.
They both came in the same year, too, didn't they? Because Shaq left in 95 from Orlando.
Yeah.
And then Kobe was drafted in 96.
Yeah, but that was Shaq's team.
Oh, it totally was. No,
yeah.
It totally was. Because I remember Kobe airballing stuff in the playoffs that first year.
Yeah. And some of these milestones with Kobe, like, oh man, people are gonna be mad when I say this.
Let them be mad.
But the 81 point game, it's impressive, all right? 81 points in a game, no matter how you do it, it's impressive. But how are you not double teaming him? Like, if you're Sam Mitchell, the coach of the Raptors at the time, how are you not double teaming him? And you have like Matt Bonner guarding him and like Jalen Rose. It's like, when are you gonna throw two guys at him to make sure that he doesn't just go off for 80 on you? And then even like the 60-point game, I'm sorry, that game was a joke on his exit game. He 22 for 50 from the field. And like, I get it, it's your farewell game. You know, you want to put on a good show, but that's more of a ceremonial thing. But everybody says it's like the greatest exit of all time. That's a 22 for 50. It took you 50 shots to get 60.
Did you watch that game?
Yeah,
I actually did. It was so ridiculous how everybody was deferring him the ball.
Yeah.
You could totally tell the whole game.
6 for 21 from 3.
Yeah.
My God.
It's funny.
And they didn't play Lou Williams, by the way, so they clearly didn't want anybody off the bench to, like, start scoring.
Right. I know, right? Mr. Automatic Point Guy.
Yeah.
Have you heard Max Kellerman talk about Kobe? How he thinks he's one of the worst players. Oh, he got so much heat for that.
I mean, he's not one of the worst.
Oh, God, no.
He's one of the.
He's one of the best for sure. I think for him, he's a volume shooter, and I think sometimes his shot selection went a little south by exactly with what you talked about. Like, he had to have that need to be the man, the best guy. And I think he really chased not the titles, which is going to sound weird to you, but I think he chased Jordan.
Yeah.
I think that's really what it was. I don't think it was chasing the titles. You had to chase the titles to be better than Jordan, but I think he was chasing Jordan more than he was chasing the titles.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Because obviously, who's the best? Sorry, Jordan's the best. I don't care. You know, if you're 15 listening to this or 20 listening to this, go to YouTube, type in Michael Jordan, and really educate yourself. Because I'm telling you right now, there's no one that has played better basketball than Michael Jordan of all time. I mean, the guy, and we'll get to him, so we're not going to jump ahead in that sense. But
yeah,
you got anything else to add about Mr. Bryant?
I do. Just, I don't want to completely shit on him. I mean, the 2 gold medals, and I will say he's done so much for USA basketball.
Yep.
Like, we don't beat Spain without Kobe.
I agree with you on that.
I mean, he was so clutch in those Olympics.
Stayed with the Lakers his whole entire career too.
Yeah, and that's what I like. He stayed with one team.
Yep.
And he did it his way. I mean, the dude's a legend. He's great. He's just not Jordan, and he's not top 3.
Do you think he comes back this year? I have this weird feeling, come like when you can be added. I don't know when you can be added to the playoff roster. I just have this weird feeling he's coming back.
Honestly, I would love to see it, and the reason is
because it would implode.
Well, I feel like Laker fans have this weird thing with LeBron and Kobe that they're like more rivals and like cool with each other.
Right.
And I feel like Laker fans just don't accept LeBron fully.
Yeah.
And I think if they played together, I think that would kind of fix that fan base.
Ooh, could you imagine though if they played together and Kobe started going off?
Yeah,
could you imagine that? There's so much.
know.
I hate the Lakers. I mean, disclaimer right there. I did like the Lakers with Magic. You know, I did because I hated the Celtics more because I'm a Knicks fan. So I'd always be rooting for the Lakers, not the Celtics. But I think that would be hysterical if he came back and started popping like 30, 35 a game in the playoffs.
One more funny thing on Kobe. Did you know that his uncle, his name's Chubby Cox?
His uncle?
Yeah, he's actually a great basketball player. He played
Wow.
in the NBA. But yeah, Chubby Cox. That's like the ultimate porn star.
Oh my
name.
God, that's so bad. Could you imagine how much like that dude got crap in school, especially like a freshman in high school?
Yeah.
Forget it. Number 10, Mr. Shaq, Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq was beyond dominant in the NBA for basically over a decade. You really couldn't stop him unless you were Rodman. We talked about this in previous podcasts. There's a great video on how much Rodman really got into Shaq's head. You should watch it. My problems with Shaq were his foul shots. They were atrocious, which is scary to think how much better his stats would have been if he actually could have made his foul shots. I mean that, and we'll talk about his numbers here in a second. His lack of an outside game, in my opinion, you know, he was your guy with, you know, he was within 7 feet. He was just unbelievably dominant, but he really did not have an outside game. Those 2 reasons is why I put Hakeem ahead of him. And when those two met in the finals, Hakeem and the Rockets completely beat down the Magic. And yes, you can say it was the beginning of Shaq's career. It might have been year 3, I think Shaq was in the league. I put Hakeem over him for those 2 reasons. If people want to know like the real reasons why I like Hakeem over Shaq, his career averages. You got to remember too, Shaq played way longer than he should have. His career averages are 23.7, 10.9 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and 2.3 blocks. But his ultimate season is really kind of what you saw more of from him. 29.7 points per game, 14 rebounds, 3.8 assists. He was actually a better, bigger man passer than people realize. 3.5 blocks. He was very dominant in the playoffs too. I mean, the playoffs is really where Shaq elevated his game, and I think, if you have to put him over Olajuwon, you can do that. And that, I mean, like I said, I wish Shaq developed more of an outside game, became more of a complete center. But, man, you weren't stopping that guy when he was in the paint. He was just brutal. I mean, he was, legit 7'2", and he probably weighed, you think 315 in that range?
I'd say, yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's insane, those numbers, man.
And to be as athletic as
he really was. And the thing that people don't realize, too, is he kind of went Fat Barkley. Because when he was with Orlando, if you look at the pictures in Orlando, he was pretty wise. And then he kind of, especially towards the end when he's playing. I mean, he's playing on Phoenix.
Yeah.
He's playing in Cleveland. He's playing with the Celtics. I mean, he must have played. It was like every year he would just take a dartboard and throw out. All right. Today I'm going to play with the Cavaliers. I'm going to play with them this year.
Can't play here. There's no cool nickname if I go.
You know what I mean? I know he had the bit. And that, one thing that we have to give Shaq too. He was amazing with the media. God, that guy was so funny.
Yeah.
He's great on the NBA show with Kenny Smith and Barkley. And Ernie Johnson, but he's always been funny. And then the rap albums, and he's just Shaq's just Shaq, and you gotta love him. Here's a funny fact about Shaq that you would not know: Shaq has over 100 DirecTV receivers in his house. He has 9 in bathrooms. He's just. Could you? If I said that and I said one NBA player, you would say Shaq right away, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You wouldn't think anybody else, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Shaq at 10 feels right to me. Olajuwon, I feel like should be higher. And I absolutely love that he's one position higher than Kobe. Sorry, I absolutely love that.
Yeah. Well, as far as the Shaq and Kobe comparison, I honestly think they're 10A, 10B. I don't really know if you can put one over the other there. Just because you can't mention one's name without mentioning the other in less than 5 seconds.
They've been stuck together their whole career, essentially.
And whether you like it or not, they're going to be stuck together. And
absolutely.
Same thing with Bird and Magic.
Yep.
Like those are the 4 guys where they always have to be attached to each other.
Yep.
Shaq and Kobe, Bird and Magic. But with Shaq and Olajuwon, Olajuwon is more skilled. He's a more skilled center. But look, Shaq's a more dominant player. I mean, they had a Hack-a-Shaq rule named after him because they just couldn't stop him.
Yep.
He took 3 different teams to the finals. And I know Olajuwon got the better of him when he was with Orlando, but that was young Shaq.
Yeah.
That was very young Shaq going against prime Olajuwon. And
yeah.
I don't think Olajuwon has that kind of success going up against Lakers Shaq.
Yeah, like 90, 99 Shaq, probably not.
Yeah, and that's what gets tough. Like earlier in the podcast on, I forget which episode, we were talking about a couple players, how we said, oh, well, he was also a lot older then, and we got to take that into consideration with young Shaq against prime Olajuwon, I think. But you're 100% right. He's a more skilled center, but just with how dominant Shaq was, and also everything he's done with like basketball, just outside of playing, just how you said he's so great. The media, all his rap albums, the movies,
all the commercials too.
Yeah, and even as shitty as his movies are, like Kazam, it's like he's still like he's just bigger than basketball. Like he really is. He's like a cop, and like it's just like you just shake your head and just laugh, like damn it, Shaq. But
he's got to be top 5. I mean, like when I think of basketball, like commercial guys, it's like Jordan, Bird, Shaq, those guys, Magic.
Yeah,
he's definitely, I think, in that conversation with Ambassador.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, and he's really like kind of our last true big man, like dominant big man when you think about it.
I completely agree, but Andre Drummond's kind of making some noise.
Yeah, I love Drummond.
We were talking about that before the podcast. He's averaging almost a 20-20 right now. He's
crazy.
I think he's like at 19.4 points.
Yeah.
So he's averaging 21 rebounds a game.
Watch by next week those numbers drop and we just sound like idiots.
Right. Well, hey, you know what? That's why we do the podcast.
Yeah.
You got anything else on Mr. Shaq that you want to add?
I really don't. I think it's a good spot for him. I think 10 is exactly where he belongs.
Number 9. I'm going to talk about this too, even though you're the Celtic guy. Number 9 is Larry Bird. In my opinion, Bird has to be higher. He had that it factor that not many people possess. You didn't want Bird to have the ball at the end of the game because you know he's going to beat you. Injuries, the back injuries really hurt him. And the thing that a lot of people don't talk about, and I know you'll agree with me on this, is the Len Bias death, I think really hurt him. I think he could have milked another 3 or 4 years out of his career with Bias on that team, because I think it would have taken the scoring load off of him. Because you have to think, Bias died in 86, I believe. And Bird started to kind of break down in 89, 90, I think. I think it would have allowed Bird to have more time on the bench and not push himself as much. I think Bird would have even been a better player, which is really scary when you think about it. If Bias's game translated to the NBA too, which I really think it would have. He was a true student of the game and probably one of the hardest workers ever in terms of being in the gym, working on his shot. One of the best trash talkers ever. His trash talking is legendary. If you don't know about it, go on YouTube and just type in Larry Brown trash talking. Larry Bird, excuse me. Larry Brown trash talks too, but that's for a different story. I actually have, I was sitting 2 rows behind Larry Brown when he was the coach of the Knicks, and he was calling Jamal fucking soft. It was amazing. It's really cool to be that close to an NBA game. If you ever get a chance to get tickets that close, go. Even if you don't like the team, it's amazing what you can hear and learn. I wonder what his percentage was from dunks. It sounds really funny, right? But I would say probably less than 10% of his points came from dunks, right? When you think about that. The reason why I bring that up is if you look at his averages, 24.3 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.7 steals is his career numbers, okay? Add dunks into that, he's probably averaging 31, right? His ultimate season, 29.9 points, let's round it to 30, 11 rebounds, 7.6 assists, 2 steals, and 1.2 blocks. That is a heck of an ultimate season. I think Bird, in my opinion, just kind of looking at their list, not my list, I like Bird in top 5. That's just my opinion. I think Bird should be higher than where he is at 9.
I agree. I 100% agree. The thing with Bird, he was a killer, and he's the master of the trash talk. And just ask Xavier McDaniel about that. He would tell you what the play was before it even happened. And he would just tell you, I'm going to catch the ball right here and I'm going to hit a jumper right in your face and there's nothing you can do about it. He would tell people this and then he'd actually do it and you just kind of shake your head like, what are you supposed to do? That's how good he was, though. And just his on-court instincts were just unbelievable. Like some of those touch passes and over-the-head passes. And I will say this, I'm not sure if you agree with me. I'm not so sure Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale are Hall of Famers or on this list without Larry Bird.
Completely agree with you.
Yeah, and as great as McHale was, like
Bird pushed him.
Yeah, he pushed him, and he made everyone on the court stars. Everyone. I think you're right with Len Bias. Like he could have maybe racked up a couple more titles if Len Bias's game translates, which I think it does.
I completely agree with
you. To
you.
have an athletic forward like Len Bias, my God. But he was incredible. 40, 50, 90 club.
For his height, too, that's beyond incredible.
Yeah, and another thing I don't think it's talked about enough, he and Magic saved basketball, and not just NBA basketball, but they changed college basketball. They made the NCAA tournament fun. And look, Larry Bird took Indiana State to the championship game. And if you're not really a college basketball fan, you might not understand what a difficult task that is, but you're taking a really small school up against these power conferences, and you hold your own against Michigan State. They had like Greg Kelser, Magic Johnson, and a couple other NBA guys. That's really impressive to me. And I don't know. I feel like you could even make the argument to put Bird over Magic because I always feel like Bird had less to work with. Like even in college, Magic had NBA players by his side, where Larry Bird had guys bagging groceries next to his side.
I almost feel like, as funny as it sounds, we talked about this earlier in the podcast. It's like I almost feel like those two guys have to be right next to each other in any ranking.
They do, and for me, it's like 5A, 5B. It's like, how do you pick one over the other?
And that's a great point. And I think that's where the water gets murky as we go down this list because there's definitely players you have to say. I mean, we'll get into Kareem, but he is the most underrated, overlooked player when they talk about greatest of all time. And I think
who Bird?
No, Kareem,
okay.
Abdul-Jabbar. Right, and I think it's the same thing with Magic and Bird. It's like you have to put Kareem in that talk with Russell and Wilt, just like you have to put Magic and Bird together.
Yeah,
in my opinion, that's just my opinion, but that's what I think personally.
Yeah, and then you look at what Larry Bird's done after his playing days. Like he was coach of the year, took the Pacers to the finals. He got the executive of the year. So, I mean, he's clearly an outstanding basketball mind.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done it at every single level of basketball you could possibly think of.
Yeah, he's a winner, and you can tell. And he's one of those guys, you want to talk about an alpha male, he is like the ultimate alpha male. Yeah. He really is. Jerry West is number 8, and this is one of those things where, do this list 15 years ago, Jerry West is probably top 5 in my opinion. He was really, I think, in my opinion, the first top superstar guard in the NBA. He could do it all. You could even argue, this would be a really tough one to argue, but you can almost argue he was the best Laker of all time. I mean, you really kind of could. And that's one of those ones where we could spend a podcast just doing that. I mean, and look at the Lakers. I mean, if you want to throw LeBron into that mix, he's only been with the Lakers for 1 year. You have LeBron, you have Wilt, you have Magic. I mean, you got Kobe. And you got Shaq.
And Kareem.
You know what I mean? Kareem's hard, though, because it was on the backside of his career. You know what I mean? Like, the Milwaukee years are much better.
Right.
Why don't you talk to me about Jerry West?
He's a logo. I mean, the NBA logo that you see that's Jerry West, he clearly had a huge impact on, the league and basketball. I wish he would have won more because he would be higher for me, I think. I just can't put him over Bird. Maybe not over Shaq, just because he needed to win more for me. He was amazing though, like his mid-range game, outstanding shooter. He's got a scoring title, a assist title. I mean,
flirted with a triple-double too.
Yeah,
in his ultimate season.
Yeah, and look what he's done as like an executive. And
yeah.
He's got 8 titles as an executive. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
That's insane. I mean, he's just one of those basketball minds.
He just gets it.
Yeah, he just gets it. And he played through so many injuries during his playing days. I love Jerry West. Just, if I'm going to put him over like a Larry Bird, I just got to see a couple more titles or a few more MVPs, something. I actually don't think he has no season MVP. And for me, you need to have a season MVP to make my top 10.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the cream. You know what I mean? Like, you got to have a ton, like we talked about earlier, you got to have a CVS receipt list of accolades. You really do. I completely believe that.
Yeah.
Number 7, LeBron James. Now, this is interesting, too, because I remember seeing LeBron in high school. I remember watching him in the beginnings of his NBA career, literally willing garbage Cavs teams really far into the playoffs. LeBron's interesting to me because he's like one of those freak of nature players. I mean, 6'8", 260, legit. I mean, legit 260. Not like, your buddy playing morning ball at 260. You know what I mean? Like, legitimate 260. But I feel like this is where you can really argue about the list. The list made no sense to me when I first saw it, but I will give Bleacher Report credit that they almost got their top 10 right. How hard is that, though? But the order needs rearranging. I think LeBron could be higher on this list or lower on this list. It's weird to say that, but it depends. I mean, he's won championships with multiple teams. Could possibly win a third with this Laker team if they make some moves before the trade deadline, in my opinion. He is definitely the best basketball player of the last 15 years. I really believe that. Where I don't have him higher is he's missing that it factor all the time. He shows flashes of it, Like that block in the playoffs. I mean, oh my God. I mean, that was like game saving. Like, here we go. But I don't feel like he has that it factor. I don't feel like it's the, like I'm going to stay with the Cavs for my whole entire career, like Kobe did, and I'm going to will these teams to win. And he didn't do that. He went to Miami. I think he's kind of a prima donna, like making a little TV show about it. To me, that was kind of lame. I think he could be higher because, I mean, the scary thing is he's still playing at a ridiculously high level. And I think if we revisit this list in like 3 or 4 years, we might be able to say, all right, he's top 5 now. And that's what I think is interesting about this list. We're talking about a guy at number 7 who's still playing. That to me is super interesting. He might, he is the face of the NBA right now too. You know what I mean? And he's a very smart guy. One thing I do really like about him is he is a great guy when it comes to building communities and putting money back into communities and understanding what his worth is. I respect the hell out of that. The school that he made for kids to go to for free and giving them bikes and all that other stuff. I mean, to me, that's like, you're making a difference, and I think that's amazing because a lot of athletes get a bad rap for not making a difference and spending too much money on planes and cars and 9,000 houses. Like, he's actually making a difference, and I respect the hell out of that. Seven's interesting. I'll let you debate this with me because I know we're going to talk about this a little bit, but if I'm making my list, he is... I can't put him over anybody else in the Bleachers list. Maybe one person I can put him over right now as we talk about this in November 2019.
Yeah. I like his placing. And the thing is, I just can't put him over Bird.
Yeah.
I can't put him over Magic or Bird.
Can you put him over Duncan?
I could put him over Duncan.
See, I can too.
Yeah. The reason with LeBron, he is that good.
Yeah.
I mean, he is that good.
You can't deny it.
Like, as far as talent goes, he has everything you could possibly want. He's physically gifted. He has it. But it's the way he's done it that kind of drops him in my rankings a little bit. Just, you didn't see Jordan hopping shit.
Nope.
You didn't see Magic. You didn't see Bird doing it.
Nope.
They did it with one team. And same with Duncan. Duncan did it with one team. But with LeBron, like, he's just so good. It's like, how much do you punish a guy and drop him in the rankings? So with me, it's like, I'll put it this way. If LeBron gets a season MVP with the Lakers and wins a title with the Lakers and is the guy, I would maybe consider putting him above Bird Magic just because that's never been done before.
But he's not going to because AD is having a career year right now.
Yeah.
So it's like a 1A, 1B guy on that team.
Yeah. But
I do think they're going to win a title if they make some moves.
Yeah.
More bench, not starters.
Or even if he gets that finals MVP, if they do it, it would be hard to not.
So then you got so 3 titles on 3 different teams.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and then you'd have a finals MVP with 3
Right.
different teams. And
which shows how much the man you are.
But for me, just the whole Miami Heat thing, you knew they were gonna win.
And it was such a joke too. I mean, even when they announced it, and they're all dancing around. It's just like,
yeah. And then you could make the argument like, yeah, he went back to Cleveland, which I'm glad. And that's actually the most impressed I've been with LeBron. By the way, was that Cleveland Finals.
Me too.
Like they were clearly outmatched, and he
really wanted Cleveland to
and
have
that's
a title.
the first time you saw that fire in his eye.
True.
Know? The first time you saw that like Jordan look. And
totally agree.
So I give him props for that. And when I saw that game, I was like, oh my God, like this guy is like great.
I felt the same way, but it's like it's the switch.
Yeah.
And it's like he doesn't turn it on before every game. Unlike Jordan, every game, Jordan, it was like, okay, you know what? I'm taking over the game. You're not gonna do anything about it. Sorry. I mean, he doesn't have that. I would say Kobe has it more than him too.
Kobe for sure does.
To be honest with you,
I'd say Robert Horry has it more than him.
Robert Horry.
No, I mean, he's outstanding. He's great, but I think with current guys, you have to set goals for them to move up in the list, and that would be my goal for him. If you could win one with LA, get a season or finals MVP also, be the first to do it 3 different teams. And
What happens what happens this year if he wins a title, he averages a triple-double, but he doesn't win finals MVP?
oh man,
Right?
I know that's like, I honestly feel this way. I feel like with the top 7,
Right.
you really can place outside of Jordan. You can place guys however you want to place them. And here's my thing. It's like James, Magic, and Bird. They're the same position. They're all different.
Right.
They all change the game for the better or worse, however you want to look at it.
Do you really
but all 3 change the game. So it's like you can kind of put them in any order you want. That's the same thing with like Russell, Abdul-Jabbar, and Wilt. It's like same thing.
But do you really put Magic? Do you really think Magic played power forward? Because I don't. You know what I mean?
I see.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I really feel like you have to call Magic Johnson a guard.
You know, he's a guard.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But
even though he's listed as a power forward, and I think it was more because of his size.
What I mean is
anything.
they're both like, they both handled the rock enough. They're the same size. They're like the same type of. I mean, you compared LeBron to Magic when he was coming in the league.
Sure,
you know?
sure.
So those 3 right there, I put them in the same ballpark.
Okay.
And then you put Russell, Abdul-Jabbar, and Wilt. It's like, I honestly think, but you can't compare a guard or a small forward to a center.
Right.
So it's like, it kind of just
it comes down to like who's the best. It's like almost like who's the most important, not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so with me, this is where it gets weird and twisted. This is where the debates really start to happen. It's like you can't possibly compare, Abdul-Jabbar to LeBron, but how do you want to place them? So.
Yeah, and it's. We're gonna go to number 6 because we're gonna start working on that debate right now. So number 6 is Magic Johnson, and if you were lucky enough to be like me, who was a young kid getting to watch Magic Johnson play, he was truly a wonder to watch. I mean, 6'9" point guard, or point forward, however you want to describe it, who is doing that like he did on the court is insane for that time period. He could play any position, and winning the finals against Philly playing center and putting up the numbers he did. I think it was 42 and 17. I mean, that's insanity. It showed he wanted to take the team onto his back and win. He made everyone around him better. Showtime Lakers. HIV killed his career. I mean, let's be honest. But at the same time, probably saved millions of lives because no one could believe that Magic Johnson could get AIDS or HIV, and they were a lot more conscientious of that. I think that's something people forget about too. I think the other reason why when we talked about this was Karl Malone, it's like with Karl Malone bitching and whining about I don't want to get into AIDS and not really paying attention to how you can get AIDS. I think they killed Magic too because let's be honest, Magic was still a high performer in '91. It wasn't like Magic was falling off. I mean, you're looking at what Magic was in the league 11 years at that point. He probably had a good 5-6 years later, and when he came back into the NBA, you remember that? Yeah. He was a lot bigger, so he wasn't the same Magic we knew, but he was putting up some pretty good numbers. If you go back and look at his numbers back then, they were not as bad as you would have thought they would have been. It was hard to watch Magic then, though. Like I watched some of those games, and I was rooting for him so hard. I wanted him to be so great in that season. It's just, you can tell it just wasn't there, and you can tell like the new guys weren't really respecting him, and it just didn't. That Laker team was bad. I mean, there was just no camaraderie. I forget who coached that team. Was it Del Harris? Did he coach that team? I'm trying to remember who did, but I just remember it was just it just wasn't a good ending, unfortunately. But Magic, I mean, like I said, the accolades are there, the titles are there, MVPs are there, gold medals there.
Yeah.
And like I said, we talked about in an earlier podcast, watch Jordan versus Magic in that one practice that you can find on YouTube in the 92 Olympics. I mean, it's amazing. His career averages 19 points a game, 7.2 rebounds, 11.2 assists, 1.2 steals. I thought the steals would be a little higher. That surprised me. His ultimate season is almost a triple-double. I mean, it's legitimately almost a triple-double. It's 23.9 points a game, 9.6 rebounds. Oof. Do you see how close he was?
Yeah, that's
close. And then 13.1 assists, 3.4 steals. That's where I thought his career steals would be more in that range of 2-3 steals. Ran the break like no one else. The no-look passes. The other thing that's interesting about him, he's one of 2 players to average 11 assists a career.
Yeah.
I think it's him and Stockton are the 2.
Stockton sounds right.
Yeah, are the 2 that have done that. Like I said, I got to watch him. He unbelievably passes my eye test, and he's one of those guys where it's so hard to figure out where to put him. The only thing I think is Bird should be right next to him wherever they are in that top 100.
Yeah, like I said, him and Bird are 5A, 5B for me. And it just kind of goes back to what we were saying about Bird, just his on-court ability to see the floor and just the no-look passes. I mean, he was Showtime. Showtime in LA was a thing. There was no one like him. Like, you want to talk about Maravich and those guys, this is a 6'9" guy doing that, you know? And
you know what's funny, though? Watching him play, you didn't think he was 6'9".
Right.
When you watched him. I thought he was like a 6'5".
Right.
You know, which is a great point you bring up.
Yeah. I mean, the guy's incredible. He had that killer instinct. You know, like I know he didn't average like 20 plus or 30 or anything like that.
He didn't need to.
Yeah, he just made everyone better. Like guys like James Worthy. I don't know if James Worthy is on this list without Magic.
Think about some of those Laker teams too.
Yeah.
Like Kurt Rambis. Like there was like role players on those teams. Michael Cooper. You know, players. I mean, Kareem was at the end of his career type of thing. I mean, think about it this way: Magic Johnson developed a baby hook.
Yeah.
Right. From Kareem, and he's like, "I'm going to do this
Student
to make me better."
Yeah,
right.
Student of the game.
And we've talked about this. Why are people not using the hook shot?
I know.
It's completely unguardable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you execute it right, it's really hard to block that shot.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, Magic. I mean, what else you got to say about Magic? I mean,
really nothing. Just him and Bird changed basketball, college and NBA. They saved the league. Like the NBA was in trouble.
And they were wearing Converse.
Yeah. Imagine if they had, like a fresh pair of Kyries or something.
Converse, man. I still can picture those the purple and the gold, and then the green and the white Converse. I still can picture those.
How were there not more like rolled ankles and like torn ACLs back? I feel like that's like injuries are so much more common.
You know why? I'll tell you why.
You know?
Okay, I will be Dr. Stanglin right now. I'll tell you why. Okay, because those ligaments don't grow. Like, so if you have like an Achilles, your Achilles doesn't grow. So those guys, like how much do you think Magic Johnson weighed? 225?
Yeah. How
much did Bird weigh? Maybe 190?
Oh, no, he weighed more than that.
You think so?
6'10". Yeah.
But he wasn't, I'll say 215 tops.
I'll say 225.
Okay. Bleacher, if you would have put down the weights, we would know this right by looking at your site. But you look at the other guys. You really can establish this in football more than anything. The guys are getting bigger and bigger and stronger, but their Achilles and their ligaments aren't growing stronger with them, and that's why they're snapping more, and that's why and that's the main reason. So that's why you don't see that. So even though the shoes were awful back then, that's why you don't see that as much, is because they weren't carrying so much weight that just really put pressure on those ligaments. Yeah. That's the main reason why.
Makes sense.
Number 5. This is the slot that I think is way too high. This is Tim Duncan, by the way. Tim Duncan's number 5. This is a slot that might be too high for Duncan or just right. Here's why. Okay, he put up huge numbers year after year. Was the reason the Spurs won as many titles as they did. I truly believe that. He dominated, but he was quiet about it. Other than that ridiculous side head thing he would do when it called and go his way with the rest with the big eyes. You remember that? It always cracked me up.
Yeah.
You know, I always wondered if being too quiet actually hurt his stock. You know, on lists like this, I don't think it hurt his stock with people that understand the game.
Yeah.
But like when you really think about Tim Duncan, he's not going to be selling you McDonald's.
Right.
You know what I mean? He just didn't have that personality. You know, 19.6 points per game, 11 rebounds, 3.1 assists, 2.2 career blocks. What you also have to remember about that is he started taking a back seat towards the end of his career. You know, he wasn't really healthy. He was more about, you know, a team-oriented guy, which it always gets points with me. But his ultimate season is where you can tell why he's up on this list so high. 25.5 points a game, 12.9 rebounds, 3.9 assists, 1 steal a game, 2.9 blocks. You got to remember also he's got Robinson on those teams for a decent amount. So it's not like he's the only big man that's really, making plays,
It was
right?
a broken down Robinson, though. It really was.
Yeah, but still, it's a guy that's grabbing. Because those first couple of years when they played together, though, Robinson was still in shape. I just think five's too high. I do. I think 7 makes more sense.
Yeah.
8 makes more sense, but 5, like if you look at our list and you've been following, and you can follow this. I mean, it's on Bleacher Report. You guys know how to use the internet. If you're looking at this, you're going to tell me that Tim Duncan is better than Magic, LeBron, Jerry West, Larry Bird, Shaq, and Kobe. I can argue some of those no, and I can argue some of those yes. And that's the hard part when you get into the cream of the crop. I think putting him at 5 is like the cred pick. You know what I mean? To try to pretend like we're outsmarting you. You know what I mean? Which you're not outsmarting us, Bleacher. I promise you. Some of the stuff you have put in that article is just beyond comical. I'm going to say, looking at their list, if I had to go by their list, I put Magic ahead of Duncan. I put Bird ahead of Duncan. And I'm gonna put LeBron ahead of Duncan.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm gonna do. But then here's the thing: is can you put Shaq ahead of Duncan?
I can't.
I don't think I can put Kobe ahead of Duncan either. I mean, I think both. I can't put Duncan ahead of them. Is what I'm trying to say. I don't know. It's hard though because we could be judging it because he was just so quiet.
Yeah,
the big fundamental,
and
right?
that's exactly what I wanted to bring up. Just like how much more of a legend is Duncan if he is more involved with like the media or doing things like Shaq was doing, like movies and things like that. He's just so quiet.
Just quiet in general. Even if he's not doing the movies or any of that other stuff, if he's just more vocal.
Yeah,
like he was just really like. He was almost like a librarian. When you talked to him, we had a really good game and this and that, and okay, blah, blah, blah. Like, but honestly, though.
That might even made him better, too.
If I'm going to put a team together, I'd probably put him at power forward on my ultimate team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just because of all the intangibles he added to. He didn't have to be the focal point of the offense. The offense didn't need to go through him. He was an underrated passer too. It's another thing we don't talk about is how good of a passer he was.
He's underrated at everything.
I really think so. I do. So I can see the cred 5 pick there, but I can't put him over Magic and I can't put him over Bird.
I'm the same way. And again, this just for me, it's what they've done for basketball. So like with Magic and Bird, it's like I can't do it just with everything they've done for the NBA. And I mean, they were 80s basketball. They made the NBA exciting. With Duncan, he didn't make the NBA exciting. Like everybody kind of didn't want to watch the Spurs. I mean, I did because I thought they played beautiful basketball. But I think you're right. I think if he's a little bit more flashy or more personality, we might be okay with him being at 5. But the reason I can put him ahead of Shaq, he did it with one team. And he's got the 5 titles. He's got as many finals MVPs.
A lot of moves too. A lot of post moves.
Yeah, a lot of post moves.
Good outside shot.
And he aged well.
He did.
Like even at the end of his career, he wasn't the same Duncan. We're like, damn, this guy's still got it.
Yep.
And he was able to take that backseat role and kind of let Kawhi Leonard take over. Or one night Ginobili's got it, and he just didn't care. He just wanted to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like 5. On paper, it seems high, but if you really think about it, there's no one that was more consistent or aged as well as him. Like, I think it's too high. I'd probably have him at like 7 or 8, but he's definitely had a Shaq for me and Kobe.
Yeah, we're in agreement on that for sure. Thanks to iTunes or Apple, the rest of my notes for the top 3 have been deleted, or top 4, so I'm going to go completely off memory on this. We got Wilt at 4, and I think that's one of those ones where we talked about earlier in the podcast. Wilt could be 2, Wilt could be 3, Wilt could be 4. Because we know what the other 3 are. You got to put Jordan 1, but you got Abdul-Jabbar, and you got Russell. And I think you can flip flop any of them in any of those positions. Personally, his career averages. So he did average a 20-20. So his career average is 30 points a game, 22.2 rebounds, 4.4 assists. You got to remember, most of his career, they didn't count blocks.
Right.
God knows how many blocks he would have had, especially against. We talked about this too before. How many people is he going against that are really good?
Yeah.
At his size.
Right.
Right? He could have had 15 blocks a game. Who the hell knows, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he probably had what? Would it be scared to say 6 to 8 blocks a game? Probably.
I'd say 6 to 8.
Right? You know what I mean? His ultimate season is just, it's ridiculous. It's like a 14-year-old playing 2K. He's got 50 points per game, 27 rebounds, and 8.6 assists. And I remember hearing about him where he would do goofy stuff where he would be like, I'm going to try to lead the league in assists this year.
Right.
And like not try to score. And he would just, he just do that. It was almost like he got bored of the game because of how dominant and good he was. Besides Russell, who was he really going against in that sense? For a couple of years, not all of them. If you go by numbers alone, you could put him at 1. Just numbers alone. But I don't think the 100-point game is super impressive. No one's ever done that. Obviously, he has a ton of awards. Here's one of these things: is I wonder if his not his accolades, but you can call them accolades. Actually, his off the court stuff. I wonder if that affects him in a negative way, like the sleeping with 10,000 women and just being him, right? I wonder if that hurts him in a negative way. I don't know. Like I said, he could be 4, he could be 3, he could be 2 for me. But the more that I think about this list, I think 4 is absolutely perfect for him.
I like it too. I think when you talk about how he got bored with the game and how he's like, I'm just going to lead the league in assists, this year and not try to score. Like, why he shouldn't be bored when he hasn't won, because at that time he hadn't beat Russell, he hadn't won a finals, and that's my thing with.
Maybe it's not a bored thing. Maybe it's more like a frustrated thing. You know what I mean? Where it's like I can't beat Russell.
Yeah,
I'm gonna lead the league in assists.
Yeah. Because for me, like, if you look at any of the media back in the day, just everyone talks about, like, Russell getting his coach fired, or, Chamberlain getting his coach fired and, demanding trades. Like, we would give him a hard time in today's NBA if he was acting that way,
It's like LeBron attitude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where LeBron's trying to pick his team and he definitely had his hand in getting coaches fired for sure.
Yeah, and for me, I love that they have Russell ahead of Will on this list. I do.
I do too.
Because you can't lose to Russell, 8 or 9 times and be ahead of him. But you're right. Like, the records, you look at it and you can put him, 1 through 3, however you want. But it's just, I just don't like the way that Wilt's career panned out. I really don't. You got to win 4 or 5 rings when you're that dominant or if you're that great. And he was that great. And everybody wants to say that he didn't have the talent around him, but he did. He had great teammates around him. He had Hall of Famers around him his whole career. So it's not like he was a Kobe Bryant, had like Smush Parker and Chris Mihm next to him. Like,
Smush Parker.
He had like Jerry West and Elgin Baylor. Then he had like Guy Rogers and like all these great Tom Meschery. He had Hall of Famers around him. So I don't know. It's a good spot for him. I wish for his sake he would have won more titles and would have beat Russell because it would have upped his legacy even more.
No, you don't. You're a Celtics fan.
No.
You don't want that.
Hey. For his sake.
For his sake,
for his sake. If I'm Will and you're that good, you can beat Russell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like he could have.
Well, and then because Russell was only 6'8", right?
6'9", yeah.
Right, and Wilt was 7'3",
7'1".
He's 7'1". Okay,
Yeah.
So you're giving up 5 inches there?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
And he's probably more athletic than Russell, I would think, and stronger. He's one of the strongest dudes ever.
Yep, absolutely.
But he was great, man. Like, not taking anything away from him. Just when you get this high on the list, you got to nitpick as much as you can.
And I was definitely waiting to do that because I knew once we get within the top 10, especially looking at their top 10 to order, I knew me and you were going to nitpick this list for sure.
Yeah.
So number 3 is Bill Russell, and the more I think about it, like. I think it's a perfect place for him too. His career averages are really interesting. 15 points, 22 rebounds, 4.3 assists. And he's doing that at a 6'8", 6'9", right? His ultimate season is pretty much around the same. 18.9 points a game, 24-point rebounds, and 5.8 assists. I like the assist numbers. I think that's great. He won, 9 titles? Is that what he won with
11.
Boston? He won 11.
In 13 years, yeah.
Which is insane. That's like UCLA. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That's like the pro UCLA. Great teammate. I'm glad that he's still recognized this high up on these lists. He consider him the best Celtic, probably.
You have to,
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's the ultimate winner.
I think I would have loved to see what he would have done in a different era too. Just out of curiosity, you know what I mean? Where would his numbers be?
Yeah.
But it shows you like going up against Wilt and how much stronger Wilt was and how Wilt had the height advantage. It shows the character and the heart of him to constantly beat him. That's that eye test, that's that intangibles. Those are things that you can't see on paper per se. But it to me is super interesting because, if you were going to go up against a fight with somebody and you're like, yeah, there's one guy 7'2", and Wilt was probably like, what, a legit 270, 280, maybe even more.
I don't know if he's that heavy. You got to remember back then, guys didn't weigh as much. I think
Right.
it's probably like
250?
Yeah, that sounds right.
And
Yeah.
so what do you think Russell was?
Probably like 220.
So you got a guy that's going to outweigh a guy by 50 pounds, and you got a good 4 or 5 height inches on him. You would think, okay, the guy that weighs 50 more pounds, that's 7'2", is going to beat the guy that's 6'8", 6'9", right?
Yeah.
But obviously he didn't. 11 titles is amazing. I mean, no one's come close to that. Like 11 titles, and especially being the man on those teams. And those teams were good too. They weren't bad teams by any means. Yeah, I think 3's perfect. Honest.
Yeah, on my list, I know I have him at number 2, and it's just 11 titles in a 13-year career. It's never going to be
Who
done
does it?
again.
No, it will never be done again.
Yeah, and he also won in college at San Francisco. So he's got titles at San Francisco, which to me is also incredible.
It just shows how dominant of a player he was.
Yeah, and again, it just goes back to the thing where people want to say he had all this talent around him in Boston. It's like, well, okay, he did it in college too. So, and to me, I think he could have set some of these records that Wilt did. I do. I know he's not known for being much of a scorer. People have this image that he couldn't score. He could score. He's just so team oriented, and he essentially is like a point center. He'd get the rebound, dribble the ball down the floor, and get assists.
And that's something.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people really do that at center?
Yeah, and so to me, I feel like if he would have tried to be selfish and set all these milestones, kind of like what Chamberlain did.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he'd score 100, but I think he could have had a bunch of different, jacked up his numbers big time.
He could have had like 28 points a game.
Easy. He probably could have done 30, 40.
Right.
But he just didn't care about that. He just wanted to win.
He wanted to win, and I think that's one of the things that separates the list also. It's like when you find, it's like why Duncan, you could put him at 5 in a way, but maybe not, because he was a super team-oriented guy. But the problem is that so was Magic and Bird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The team-oriented guys always rank higher for me, and that's why I love Kobe at 11.
Yeah.
Because he was not really a team player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And another thing, Wilt was so much more involved with like the media and like doing movies and stuff. Bill wasn't. Like Bill was
Lunch pail guy.
and he's fighting racial barriers.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done a lot, not just for basketball, but he's breaking racial barriers.
Well, and he's still involved too, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's still cool to see him talk to the guys.
And like flipping off the camera.
Isn't that
from-
amazing?
Yeah.
How old is he now?
Oh man, he's got to be pushing 80
Yeah.
something. But yeah, man. I think you could even make the argument that Bill Russell's the best of all time in a lot of ways.
I can't.
I
can't.
I mean, from the eye test, I've seen Jordan, so I can't.
Yeah.
But if you want to if you're to close your eyes and look at a resume,
Right.
and you see 11 titles
Yeah.
and all the MVPs compared to Jordan's, you're going to say, okay, Bill Russell.
Sure.
But then on the eye test, we live through Jordan and you
Yeah.
see it and you're like, oh, Jordan.
Well, think about this. If Jordan didn't have, Jordan had a weird, and we'll get to him in a second, obviously, but Jordan had a weird little point in his life where his dad gets murdered, which
Yeah.
is so bizarre, like on the side of the road.
Right.
He gets murdered, and then Jordan kind of like loses it, and then like goes to play baseball for a couple years. Jordan should have 9 titles.
I think so.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, he really should have. And I think that's, you know, I don't know. It's, yeah, I could see Russell at 2. I could totally see your argument for Russell at 2.
Yeah.
But number 2 is Kareem. And,
And I respect that pick.
oh,
too.
I do too, actually. I think he's one of those guys that always gets underlooked when you talk about best of all time.
Yeah.
You know, and when you look at his numbers, I mean, his numbers are quite impressive. I remember, unfortunately, the please shave your head, Kareem era of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I really do. The goggles, the goofy ass head, and he obviously was amazing with Milwaukee. He just wasn't, you know, he wasn't the same player when I would watch him, but he was still dominant. I mean, his career averages, and remember, he had a couple seasons where he really wasn't doing anything, and I wish we could cut those seasons out and do those, you know, I mean, the seasons are seasons. You played them, so obviously they have to count. But 24.6 points per game, 11.2 rebounds, 3.6 assists, and 2.6 blocks. Now, his ultimate season, and this is where you see really where this guy belongs up in the top 3 to 5 when you're talking about best NBA players of all time, 34.8 points per game, 16.9 rebounds, 5.4 assists, almost 2 steals a game, which is very impressive for a big man, and 4.1 blocks, okay? He also basically created that sky hook. I mean, that shot, I mean, I can still picture him just right in the middle of the lane throwing that shot up. I mean, it was vintage Kareem. Unstoppable. I mean, you like I said, CVS receipt. That's his career accolades. I mean, the guy won everywhere. I was thinking about this too. Wouldn't it have been cool to seeing these guys play in the Olympics?
Oh, yeah.
I always think that, like, what would it be like if, like, Russell and Wilt and Jabbar and Jerry West and, you know, all these guys got to play in the Olympics?
Like when they were pros.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that would have been just fantastic. You can debate all day long about, I think, those 3 centers like we talked about, Russell, Chamberlain, and Jabbar. But I think, and I'll go against you, I think this is the right place for him at 2.
Yeah,
I do,
and I respect it. He won at UCLA as well. He's on those dominant UCLA teams. He won one in Milwaukee. Then he won in LA. I mean, everywhere he's gone, he's been a winner.
Yep.
So I totally respect it, and to dominate the skyhook too. That's just one of the most beautiful shots I think I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The fact that players aren't using that today, like we talked about earlier, it just blows my mind. It's like this guy made a living, and he's the all-time leading scorer because of it. And Kareem was awesome. He really was. I would have liked to see him get a little more rebounds during his Laker games. I really would have. To me, he's a little bit soft, but the fact that he was able to dominate, being that like thin and like you know, I think that speaks volume of how talented he was.
And he was interesting, like, as a person. Like, he's in Airplane the movie, which is just like hysterical. But then, like, he's very controversial too.
Yeah.
And he always blames stuff on why it wasn't a coach and why he wasn't this and why it wasn't that. Quiet guy, interesting guy. I mean, he was in one of Bruce Lee's movies. I mean, he studied martial arts with Bruce Lee. I mean, very. You know, if you got to know more, because he was one of those quiet guys too. You know what I mean? He wasn't loud like a Magic was, not in a bad way. Magic was just Magic, but he was super like reserved, which I thought was interesting too. And I wonder how much that affected. You have to think about that stuff. As dumb as it sounds, you have to think about how those things affect your career, because it does. I mean,
it totally does.
It's why I don't have Kobe high on the list.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because I don't like me guys. No. That's just me. I don't care for them. And like we talked about earlier, ball movement is essential to winning or losing basketball games. The more ball movement you have, like it's, you know, like you see like in the 50s and 60s, like the ball wouldn't touch the ground. Yeah. It would just be going all across, would not touch the ground. Nowadays, it's like dribble, ISO, dribble, 3-pointer.
Just watch a Rockets game.
Oh my God. You know what I mean? But or like, you know, but look at Golden State, right? Golden State jacks with threes left and right, but they have good ball movement too. Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about this year. I'm not talking about this year. Sorry, Warrior fans. Maybe you have your Kings jerseys in the closet still, but I'm gonna get shit for that one. I don't care. If you're where we're from, me and Zach, and you grew up here, it was Kings jerseys left and right, and then out of nowhere, Golden State everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like, what happened to the Kings? I mean, other than they suck, but does that mean you stop rooting for them? I am like a diehard Knicks fan, and I will not jump over to the Brooklyn Nets. I don't care. I don't care if we don't win 20 games a year for the next 10 years. I'm still going to be a Knicks fan. That's just the way I am. Yeah, Jabbar is.
Yeah, and one thing on Jabbar, he's not really involved with helping the younger guys.
No, he's not. It's a chip on the shoulder thing, man.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre. Like, even as much of a me guy as you said Kobe is, he's got the detail thing. He's like trying to help young guys, and same with Russell. Like, he's trying to help Garnett when Garnett was there. It's like, but he's not really a teacher of the game. Like, he's really quiet.
Yeah,
and that's what's kind of bizarre to me. You'd think somebody like him would really try to, especially now with the big man dying in the NBA.
And the game's been good to you. Why wouldn't you work on preserving the game by giving your knowledge?
Yeah, so you would think that he would try to essentially save the position of the center in the NBA.
Yeah, and you're right about that. I think it's a chip on the shoulder with him personally.
So I got Russell ahead of him.
No, and you know what? Like, that's one of those ones where, like, we can talk about this next week, and I could say, yeah, you know what? I can see Russell at 2. You know what I mean? But I think Kareem's at 3. I don't think he's any lower than 3.
He's not lower than 3.
I think he's either 2 or 3.
Yeah.
You can argue 1, but I won't.
I'll
respect it, but I'll never agree with you.
Right.
2 or 3, I think, is the perfect for him. Number 1, like, this is the thing they got right for sure.
I thought for sure they're gonna screw this up and put like Hubert Davis at 1 or something.
Right? It's so stupid to think like. Here's my problem. Okay, if you are on Twitter, and I use Twitter predominantly for sports, it's amazing how many trolls you have, but it's amazing how many uneducated people you have. Like, you cannot have this conversation with me saying that LeBron is the best player of all time, and there's traction on that. I mean, it's not just homers on Twitter. I mean, there is some serious traction. If you're an educated basketball fan, you can definitely make a point about LeBron, but you got to tell me you watched Jordan. And if you hadn't, you got to go on YouTube and watch. You have to watch some games. I mean, he is the ultimate game changer. No one has the it factor more than Jordan.
Yeah.
No one. And I don't think no one ever will. I mean, he was one of those guys where it was like it depended on his life if he won or not. I mean, that's just how he had his attitude. Think about this. He got cut from his high school basketball team.
Yeah.
Right? Now we're talking about the best player of all time who gets cut from his high school team. That shows an unbelievable, like, perseverance that you can't put on paper. I remember watching Jordan. I'm an East Coast guy. I grew up in Jersey. And all my buddies were Jordan fans when Jordan came out. Like, there wasn't Knicks fans anymore. It was Jordan. I mean, you want to talk about the guy that changed basketball. Bird and Magic saved basketball. Jordan changed it. Yeah. Jordan made it international. I mean, he legitimately did. He was a guy that every time the Knicks would play the Bulls, it was like, we got to stop Jordan. And every time in my head, I'm like, we're not stopping Jordan. We're not stopping. I just knew it. I mean, you know, like, he was a guy that would just, you know, highlights, dunk contests. I mean, amazing control of his body. But then, like we talked about earlier in the podcast, he developed an outside shot. Like, really developed an outside shot. That
unbelievable
fade away.
Yeah, that post game.
And he was, what, a legit 6'6"?
6'6",
yeah, right? He wasn't afraid. He'd get right in your face. I mean, he was the alpha male. I mean, he was an amazing player. His stats are interesting because scoring titles galore. He was 36 and 5 in his career. The steals 2.3. I think that was kind of low in a way. I thought he'd be a little bit higher on that because really amazing defender. No one really talks about his defense.
Yeah.
Amazing defender. I mean, he obviously he could score whenever he wanted to, however he wanted to. Remind me of Bird like that, you know. And boy, did they have some games together in the 80s. His ultimate season, 37 points. I mean, 37 is huge in the time period he played. 8 rebounds, 8 assists, 3.2 steals, and 1.6 blocks.
Wow.
Do you see what I'm saying? He was just one of those guys that you just cannot. Sorry. I mean, I don't care what LeBron does. He's not going to pass Jordan. He could win 4 more titles with the Lakers. He can do whatever he wants to. If you put prime LeBron and against prime Jordan, I'm sorry, Jordan would lock his ass down he would make him cry. I
Yeah.
mean, he would literally. I never really watched a series of basketball that mattered where Jordan wasn't the best guy on the floor.
Yeah.
Hands down. I mean, and like, we can talk about this. I'm going to let you talk about it in a second. All of the teams he played on, okay, yes, Pippen, whatever, right? Who else, except for that 96 through 98 team, who did he have on his teams?
Yeah.
He had an old,
Just Rodman.
he had an old Bill Cartwright, cool, whatever. You know, he had Stacey King, come on, please. He had Bill Whittington. He had Paxson, Hodges, B.J. Armstrong, Luke Longley. I mean, who did he really have that you can go? You know what I mean? And he's going through coaching changes. You know, obviously when Phil came, everything changed. He's going against the bad boys who are beating the shit out of him in those games.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's no LeBron rules, but there is a Jordan rules.
Oh, I'm telling you, dude, they beat the shit out of him. I mean, they really made him change his game.
Yeah.
You didn't talk shit to Jordan. Like, say something to Jordan and watch him he hit this other level you didn't even know existed, and he would just destroy you.
Yeah.
I mean, get a good game on Jordan in a quarter and talk shit and forget it. You were hating that you even opened up your mouth.
Right.
Like Reggie Miller said, don't talk to him. But it was true. And I mean, like, and to me, those are intangibles that if you're not watching the game, if you're not watching him play, then you don't understand the greatness. And obviously, I mean, look at Nike.
Yeah.
Look at this. You want to talk about people having an impact globally or on the game, just period, right? There's no Nike without Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Like, you have owned a pair of Jordans. I have owned a pair of Jordans. Everyone's owned a pair of Jordans. I mean, like, the swoosh logo, you think Jordan.
Yeah.
You don't think some white dude that invented Nike. You think Jordan. Take Jordan away from Nike in the 80s.
Yeah.
They go in the toilet.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I mean, there's other people, you know, and then you have like your Andre Agassi's in tennis, and there's other people that were on Nike, obviously, but Jordan's the guy that not only put that company really on the map, he's the one that made him like a global empire.
Yeah.
Take him away. Here's the reason why people get the sneaker deals they do and the endorsement deals they do, because that wasn't really legit. I mean, Converse had Magic and Bird, and, you know, I know there's other people that had endorsement deals. He's the guy.
Yeah.
Legitimately, that's like, we're getting paid to the point where he didn't have to take money on his contracts, really, because he knew how much money he made in his endorsements.
Yeah.
So Jordan, if you pay attention, Jordan wasn't really paid until towards the end, where he's like, nah, you're going to pay me what I'm worth now.
Right.
But you'd be surprised at how much money he did not really make basketball-wise, because he didn't care, because he was making it endorsement-wise.
Yeah. I mean, he's the GOAT, hands down. And like I said earlier, there's no LeBron rules, there's no Kobe rules, but there is Jordan rules. And that's the only way you could beat him, is if you just beat the living shit out of him every single time. And that essentially changed the game of basketball. They had to really like start, you know, nitpicking the foul calls on that, so you weren't just taking dudes out. And imagine if Jordan played in today's era. Again, I hate comparing eras, but if the rules were called the same back in the 90s, the dude would be averaging 40, 50 a game. Easily. Just with how many foul shots he'd be taking.
People don't realize how strong he was, too.
Yeah, well, after the Pistons, he hit the weight room, and he gained a solid 15, 20 pounds of muscle, and that's just how psychotic he was.
Dedication.
Yeah, complete dedication.
Those practices he'd have.
Oh, my God.
When you got to hear about them, like...
Yeah. Look, it's one of those things you really had to witness. Like, when I think Jordan, I think the flu game. When I think LeBron, I think the cramp game in San Antonio. And, like, the Kobe 81 game, I'm sorry, the Jordan 63 in the Garden game.
Thanks.
No,
Boston
Garden.
Trust me.
Boston Garden.
Well, I mean, he had 61 on us.
Yeah, but 63 in the Boston Garden, the playoffs against the Celtics.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's no AC in that gym either. And, I mean, that was like July. And LeBron's cramping up, whereas Jordan's lighting them up for 63.
Yeah.
And it's just a different level.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different level. And I'm sorry, you're right. There's nothing LeBron can do to top Jordan, just because of how big Jordan was globally without social media.
Yeah.
Like, he changed basketball all across the world. There's
Absolutely.
no Instagram. There's no Facebook. There's none of that. Imagine if we had that back then. Like, imagine just how much bigger he would be.
Oh, he'd be huge. He'd be in trouble, though.
Yeah.
He'd be in trouble. I mean, him and Oakley and Barkley, they got away with murder back then because there wasn't 8 million people with phones that had cameras, trust me.
But I've always respected Jordan because he's always stayed out of politics. And I don't know if he's a Republican or a Democrat.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, LeBron, he's very open and controversial about that.
But then he backtracks, too.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, and so I just respect that about Jordan, and he's smart because it would hurt his brand. He's shut up about that.
He's very smart. I mean, LeBron's going to make more money than him because LeBron's got people that are helping him understand how to make money. Magic has made a ridiculous amount of money. People don't realize how much he's made on movie theaters and other stuff like that. But yeah, Jordan's very intelligent, man, when it comes to making money. He knows how to do it. I mean, he's the best, and you can get on us on social media and email, and you can talk to us about this and whatnot. But we're just not going to talk to you if you're going to say LeBron's better or Kobe, especially Kobe. Just don't even send it. Don't even send a message if you think Kobe's better, because there's no way you can. There's nothing you can prove. There's no way. Yeah. I'm sorry. I've had so much fun doing this with my buddy Zach. I mean, we went through 100 players. We got an honorable mention podcast coming up soon, where we're going to talk about people we think should have made the list, forgotten players that maybe should have cracked the list, or at least the honorable mention part of the list. But it's been a ton of fun. It was really cool to do a lot of research on some players I didn't know and get a better idea. And it was also fun to like revisit my memories of watching some of these guys and just realizing how the NBA is just a great game. Whatever era you watched, basketball is great. And you can watch the slow down version of it in the 90s where the Knicks were scoring like 50 points a game. You can watch the crazy scoring nowadays, the 3-point, everyone's shooting 3-pointers. You can watch whatever, wherever you come from, however old you are. I mean, you're going to have fond memories of the NBA if you like basketball. I truly believe that.
Yeah.
Any closing words, Zach?
I just want to thank our listeners for sticking with us. Like Eric said, this has been so much fun to just kind of relive a lot of memories about some players. And, when my dad locked me in the basement and showed me a ton of these players, there's still some of these players I haven't really thought about in a while. So it's kind of fun to revisit that and check out some old highlights. But look, I'm sure at some point we'll have our own top 100 list and clean up Bleacher Report's mess a little bit. But this is a lot of fun to do. We're both huge basketball fans here, and we hope you guys really enjoyed it. And like you said, send us some messages, debate us. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. And, we look forward to the next one.
Yeah, definitely subscribe to us for sure. That helps get the word out. And we appreciate all the support. And check in because next week we will be doing our honorable mentions. Have a wonderful weekend, guys.